I joined the Army in 1971 when I was 16, and I served with the Royal Anglian Regiment, the 3rd Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment. I went through what was known as boy service over here then. So junior leaders, that was our version of Sandhurst for non-commissioned officers. I have done quite a bit of acting. Basically what happened was in 1994, I kept running into people who were actors, and of course we all know people who are actors and singers and everything, but this was just constantly running into people who, some of whom were on Broadway, and it intrigued me, and I said, I really would like to basically try my hand at that and see what happens. So I auditioned for, I took some lessons. I auditioned for a day trip, like singing waiters on a cruise ship. I was so bad that the woman ahead of me got a standing ovation, which you normally don't get on auditions. That's not the right thing to do, and it completely freaked me out. I got back in my car, I cried all the way home, a fully grown man, cried all the way home and said, that's it, I've done my lessons, I've done my audition, it's not getting me anywhere, and that was that. A few years later I saw an audition come up in a local newspaper randomly, completely randomly, for, being a bit older I would have appreciated this, it was for a musical called Guys and Dolls. And I thought that I would get lost in the chorus, which would be really easy, you know. Turns out that that's actually one of the most difficult things. However, from somewhere I was able to get up on stage, do my 2 audition songs, which to this day I still remember, which On the Street Where You Live from My Fair Lady and Corner of the Sky from Pippin. Sung those, got cast as Brannigan, which is the Irish cop in Guys and Dolls. Absolutely loved it. And what changed my life, I can look back and say this was a pivotal point in my life. There was a line in there where the director just basically swapped the lines. I won't give you the whole thing because it just takes too long to explain. Just go with that. But he swapped over the lines relevant to where we were actually producing the show. And when I went out, it's called an aside, you actually break the fourth wall and talk to the audience. And I literally had this line where I said, not Pimlico, Rockville. And everybody just fell about laughing. Now, what I didn't know at the time was it was all because they were all friends, family, and so on. But in that instant, I had a communication with an audience, and that sold me right there. I had left emotionally and joined the circus. I like to think I've been in media without it sounding pompous and arrogant since before media was cool. And so what had happened is having become an actor, I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, and there were 52 professional theatres in Washington, D.C. This was in the late 90s. And I didn't know that until I read this on a billboard. The tagline said, did you know there were 52 professional theatres in Washington, D.C.? And I went back and I looked through all of my hard copies of what we would have had then, literally in a filing cabinet. And what I found was I had a majority of those things. And at the time, the internet was just starting to explode. And I said to some friends of mine who were website developers in the early stages of this, I went, could you put together a website that would like put all of these in one place? And so I created actorconnection.com, which you can still find on the Wayback Machine. And they created this really very good interactive website. So this was in like late 90s, early 2000s. 2 years ago, I ended up getting a spot as a presenter on a community radio station just before COVID hit, which was really unfortunate because the station didn't make it. And it was such a shame because it was just starting to really do well. But it really, what it did is, having acted as well, which is a different medium altogether, to this, and then having done that, I was just sold. I got involved with a group called Soldiers Arts Academy. Amanda Faber, who had created that, then said, I interviewed some of their guys for my radio show. And then she said, you know, you're good at this, you should look into this. And there's this great course that BFBS runs. And originally I had come along thinking I was going to improve my radio skills. And just that, in the same sort of misguided way that I thought I would be in the chorus. And what you don't realize is that's actually one of the more challenging things, because everybody can be a radio presenter, or they think they can, and everybody thinks they can be an actor. And again, I don't mean it in a pompous way. If anybody sees this and they really want to do that, do it. It's a dream and you should follow that dream. But everybody's doing it. And so when I looked at the course and interviewed and auditioned for the course, I realized there was much more out there. Oh, the changes in the last 20 years. I was just thinking about this actually. When it came to doing my documentary, that was one of the subjects I was thinking of doing it on, because the changes have been vast and almost unrecognizable. So 20 years ago, you had the beginnings of the internet, and it was a bit of a joke. Possibly some people in the room are not my age, but nearer to my age, who would remember that the internet. Yeah, that's a passing phase. That'll never happen. And I think some of the things it's done, it's put the record industry on its head, it's put the film industry on its head. We can now make short films ourselves. We can make whole full-length films with an iPhone and put it up onto YouTube and have an audience. So you've gone from this thing that was, we had discussed before, the challenges of getting into this industry. I think in some ways it might have been easier in those days to get into the industry because you didn't always need the technical know-how. But then when you got in, you were kind of limited. If I look back on some of the shows I watched as a kid, and you look now, how crude they were in comparison of production values. And yet that's what we thought was the benchmark, and we've moved so far forward now. And some of the things that have, we had dial-up. We had a dial-up modem at the time, and you heard the beeps in the background as it was actually starting to register. And there was only so much memory that you could upload. There was a huge limitation on everything that you did. And now, like I said, it's just and what COVID has done, it has made us realize that we don't need to be in an office in order to communicate. Communication is simple. You can do it on pretty much. Zoom didn't work? Oh, hang on a second, I'll get you on Facebook. Oh, that didn't work? Hang on a second, I'll get you on a WhatsApp call. And it just goes on and on. It's unlimited in that sense. So I think what has changed is the availability of the technology. As with any technology, the price has come down. It's much more accessible. A quick example is when the radio station that I worked with, North Arts FM, had to shut up its doors. They kept going for the rest of the year, and they said anybody who can do it from home, and I'd already invested enough time, not money, but I'd invested part of my soul into that radio station, and I was damned if I was going to let it go. So I went out and had the computer for a couple of £100. I bought a microphone and a mixing board, and that was it. And downloaded some software, a free share-based software, and that was it. I was in. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you couldn't have done that. Just would have been inaccessible to us. Well, now that the course is coming to an end, I think what it's done is it's opened up a huge opportunity for all of us, more specifically for myself. Podcasting is something that has really spiked my attention. And it kept coming up in the past, oh, you should do podcasting. And I never quite got my head around it. I couldn't think, why do people want to do that? You look at the average podcast, it's 3 hours long, and I'm going, do I really want to listen to something for 3 hours? That has changed now. Everything has become much more dynamic. After I joined the course, and I hadn't been here for just a little while, I thought I would remain in radio. I thought that would be, again, and I go back to the whole thing about joining, auditioning for the chorus, if you like. You were that nondescript person. But what I've come to understand is that it's actually more difficult to be on radio because they don't see you. So you've got to create all of that with not only with your voice, but with your personality and everything else. And it is quite, I think, quite a challenging role to fill. So when I first joined, that's kind of where I saw myself going. That has changed dramatically since being on the course. In a year, I would plan on making a documentary. I would plan on getting back into radio, and they're all things that I've literally written down and told the right people about in order to hold myself accountable.